Good afternoon, everyone. Today's Bible passage is from 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 23 to 33, and First Peter's chapter 3, verse 3 to 4. First Samuel chapter 25, verse 23 to 33. When Abigail saw David, he quickly got off. When Samuel When Abigail saw David, he quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David. With her face to the ground, she fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see that men my Lord sent. And now, my Lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my Lord be like Nabal. And let this gift which your servant has brought to my Lord be given to the men who follows you. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him ruler of over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of the needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord's success, remember your servant. David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands." First Peter chapter 3, verse 3 to 4. Your beauty should not your beauty Your beauty shall not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. This is the word of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Naga, for reading those verses for all of us. One of the most beautiful birds is the peacock. Their vibrant blue and green colored feathers with many intricate designs displayed magnificently, especially during the rain dance, is a treat to the eyes. Their feathers, when spread wide, is like a Japanese folding fan. Now, today, our aim is to look at some women in the Bible, to explore their characters, to look at their values, virtues, and even vices and wickedness. Our aim then is to construct and imagine how a woman after God's own heart would look like. Now, this title, A Person or a Man After God's Own Heart, is a title given to King David. But through Christ, we can be people after God's own heart. And today, being Mother's Day, we will look at this title or this theme, a woman after God's own heart. Let's first look at two wicked women, two wicked mothers in the Bible. And after that, we will look at two godly mothers in the Bible. And we will analyze their characters and we will try to paint a picture where we will see what a godly mother would be like. The first one is Queen Jezebel. Queen Jezebel, her story is found in First Kings chapter 21. Now, Queen Jezebel was a Phoenician princess, the daughter of King Ethbal from the city of Sidon, contemporary city Sidon in Lebanon. She was married to King Ahab, as Ahab, the king of Israel, the northern kingdom, was forming a political alliance with Phoenicia. Queen Jezebel, after her marriage with King Ahab, brought with her the worship of Baal. She nurtured and took care of more than 450 prophets of Baal, idol worship, and 400 prophets of Asherah in Israel. First Kings chapter 18, verse 19. And all these prophets ate together with Queen Jezebel at her table. Her arrival and her promotion of the prophets of Baal was the beginning of persecution for the prophets of Yahweh. Now, today we focus on a story in First Kings chapter 21. We will analyze her character, her vices, and her values. Now, King Ahab, her husband, wanted to buy a vineyard from a certain man called Naboth because his vineyard was close to King Ahab's palace. But Naboth declined, citing inheritance law. He said that I have inherited this property from my ancestors, and therefore I cannot sell this land to you, although you give me a huge amount of money. King Ahab went home and he sulked like a small boy, like a man who never outgrew his teenage tantrums and emotion. He sulks. Then Queen Jezebel comes into the picture and asks the king for the reason of his sadness. The king told her the reason, like a small boy, sulking, telling his mother his problem. The king tells the queen his problem. The queen said, "Is this how you act as king over Israel? Get up and eat, cheer up. I'll get you the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite." Verse 7. These words were like a mother encouraging her son. In other words, Jezebel has taken control of King Ahab. He was completely sold to wickedness. He had no moral authority and strength to fight against sin, the sin of idolatry, and the wickedness Jezebel had brought into the kingdom. What happened next? Queen Jezebel used King Ahab's seal and wrote a letter of conspiracy to the elders of the town and falsely accused Naboth, the owner of the vineyard, accused him of blasphemy and got him executed, to cut the story short. She then seized Naboth's vineyard and then went to tell King Ahab, "Get up and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite that he refused to sell you. He is no longer alive, but dead." And Ahab quickly got up, went and took possession of the land. It's like mother telling son or daughter, "Here's a toy, come and get. Don't cry anymore." And the child gets up so happily and takes the toy and stops crying. A wicked woman who had total control of her husband and used her authority and power in a very wrong way. Now, this action really annoyed God. And therefore, God sent prophet Elijah to King Ahab and prophesied the downfall of his dynasty. Later, we come to read that Jehu brought the destruction of the throne and dynasty and killed every member of King Ahab. Queen Jezebel also experienced a dramatic death. We'll analyze the life of Queen Jezebel after we have looked at the second queen. And this second queen is Queen Athaliah. Queen Athaliah. Who is Queen Athaliah? Queen Athaliah is the daughter of Queen Jezebel, like mother, like daughter. Queen Athaliah's story is in 2 Kings chapter 8, verses 16 to chapter 11, verse 6, and also is found in 2 Chronicles chapter 22. Queen Athaliah's story is a story of wickedness and tragedy, and the Bible does not hide about it. Now, this woman was married to Jehoram, son of King Jehoshaphat. So Israel was, or the land of Israel, the land of the Jews were divided into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And the northern kingdom was ruled by King Ahab. The southern kingdom at that time was ruled by King Jehoshaphat. So King Jehoshaphat's son Jehoram married the northern king's daughter. And so now in the southern kingdom, that is in Judah, the northern king's daughter is married to the southern king Jehoram. 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 18. Jehoram followed the ways of the kings of Israel, that is the northern kingdom, as the house of Ahab had done. For he married a daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 27, again, repetition is being made. He followed the ways of the house of Ahab and did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was related by marriage to Ahab's family. Wrong marriage is disastrous. Wrong marriage is tragic. Absence of same spiritual wavelength in marriage is tragic and is the perfect recipe for disaster. And this is what happened to the king of Judah. Athaliah became the mother of King Ahaziah, and Ahaziah became the king after his father passed away. And Ahaziah ruled southern kingdom for 1 year. And after he was killed in a battle, his mother Athaliah took over the throne. And the land was now being promoted to worship Baal, the Phoenician god. She killed all the royal heirs who could challenge her authority. So she did not only become the one to take control of the southern kingdom, but she killed every male individual who could challenge her authority in that kingdom. Very wicked person. But what happened? Jehosheba, there was a lady called Jehosheba. And Jehosheba is her own daughter, King Ahaziah's sister. She hid Joash, that is Ahaziah's son, Joash, her nephew, son of King Ahaziah, and hid him in the temple for 6 years during the entire reign of the wicked queen in 2 Kings chapter 11. So King Joash was hidden in the temple for 6 years by her daughter, Ahaziah's sister, in the temple, because Jehosheba was the wife of the priest Jehoiada. 2 Chronicles 22. Names are confusing, but I'll let you know what I'm driving at. So priest Jehoiada was then instrumental in bringing King Joash to the throne and his coronation. Now, during her 6 years rule in the southern kingdom, she vigorously promoted Baal worship in Judah, a wicked queen. Now let's analyze the life of Queen Jezebel and Queen Athaliah. Firstly, they had brazen courage to do what was evil. Brazen courage to do what was evil. They did not mind to kill people. They did not mind to take authority in their hands and do what was wicked before the eyes of God and man. Jezebel put false charges against Naboth and killed him. Athaliah killed all the heirs to the throne. They were wicked, brazen courage to do what was wicked. Second, they were manipulative and deceptive in achieving their goals. They were manipulative. Queen Jezebel wrote a letter using the seal of her husband, manipulated and told the elders of the town to kill Naboth. Manipulation. And of course, Queen Athaliah achieved that as well by trying to destroy and kill all the heirs to the throne. She had her selfish agenda. Thirdly, we see the danger of idolatry and turning away from God. When King Ahab turned away from God because of Queen Jezebel's influence, and King Jehoram turned away from God by the influence of Queen Athaliah, we see that the people turn away from God. And this is a classic example that is repeated. That is repeated because from Genesis chapter 3, you see when Eve was tempted, Adam did not step in. Adam was passive. The Bible says that Adam was with Eve when Eve was tempted. But Adam did not step in. He was passive. And wrong authority in the hands of wrong people leads to destruction of the family. And here, wicked women, Jezebel and Athaliah, brought idolatry, and as the two husbands did not stand up against the wrong teachings, it brought destruction to the families and to their kingdoms. Number 4, they were proud, they disregarded justice, and they betrayed everyone. There was no sense of justice in the story of Queen Jezebel and King Ahab. There was no respect for the inheritance law. They manipulated. They disregarded the system of justice and inheritance. And of course, Queen Athaliah betrayed everyone, killed all the heirs to the throne of two wicked women, bringing disaster to the families and kingdom. And these, of course, are the examples that we should not follow. And these are the women that we see in the Bible who sets and gives us warning and encouragement for our mothers. These are women that you should not follow. Mothers, these are the people we should learn lessons from and should never take their path. Let's look at two other women that we meet in the Bible who are godly and whom mothers in NCF and all of us can follow. Let's first meet Queen Abigail. 1 Samuel 25, Queen Abigail. Before she became the wife of King David, she was a faithful wife of a man called Nabal. Nabal was a wealthy Calebite, means coming from the line of Caleb, from the region of Carmel, the southern part of Judah. Nabal's name in Hebrew means fool, and his actions were also foolish, as his name suggests. But Abigail is described as an intelligent and beautiful woman. Now, this story in 1 Samuel 25 happened after Prophet Samuel died and when King Saul was hunting David from mountain to mountain, from cave to cave. David came down to a region called Mount, where Carmel was. And as they stayed in that region, they protected some shepherds and flocks coming and grazing near their hideout. They protected some shepherds and flocks when this sheep came grazing near their hideout. Now, during the sheep shearing season, harvest of the wool, David sent his men to Nabal, the owner of the sheep, with a warm greeting and asking for some provision for King David for what he has done for his shepherd and the flock during their grazing throughout the year. Now, Nabal was a mean and a surly man, verse 3. He insulted David's men and he said like this, verses 11, 12, and 13. When David's men went to Nabal and asked him for some provision, he said like this, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and meat I have slaughtered for my sharers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. David said to his men, "Each of you strap on your sword." And so they did. And David strapped his on as well. About 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. This was a serious crisis. David was ready to go and shed the blood of Nabal. Now, a servant of Abigail heard all the discussion that took place between David's men and her husband Nabal. And therefore, the servant reported to Abigail. Now, this is how the report went, verses 15 and 16. "These men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us. And the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day, they were a wall around us the whole time we were herding our sheep near them." After hearing this, Abigail quickly gathered some generous supply of food and went out to meet David. Now, as she went to where David's men came from, she meets David on the way with his men coming with the sword, coming down the hills toward Carmel. As she met David, she climbed down from the donkey and she pleads on behalf of her wicked husband. It is a very good speech made by Abigail and widely used for interpersonal relationship and reconciliation, and perhaps can be a case study for diplomacy and IR studies too. What did she say? 5 things, maybe 6 things. She pleads David to ignore the foolish Nabal and his careless words. My husband is foolish. Please ignore his words first. Second, she pleads innocence of not seeing David's servants when they came. I was not there, I didn't see it. Otherwise, the implication is I would have given, I was not there, I didn't know. Third, she reminds David of his clean hand. David, your hand has been clean. You have not shed blood at all. Although King Saul has been hunting you, the story is known by everyone. But your hand is clean. Your hands have not shed blood. And so why should you shed the blood of this foolish Nabal? Do not shed blood. Fourth, she reminds David of the bigger picture, how God is going to establish David's throne. And so, do not shed blood. And then fifth, she paints a picture of a future for David. That when God has established your throne and you become king, do not be filled with guilt, she says. Verses 31 and 32. When the Lord God has appointed him or you ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed. When God has made you king, if you do not shed blood today, you will not have that guilty conscience upon you. And sixthly, she said, remember my words. Remember me when God has fulfilled all this upon you. Now she spoke with wisdom and counsel into David's flustered and emotionally charged heart, filled with anger and revenge. How did David respond? David obliged and returned. He said this before he returned. Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request. David was coming, fuming and puffing with anger. And yet, after hearing the words of Abigail, he said, go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request. Abigail's wisdom, Abigail's words rang in David's heart and head. Later, when Abigail returned home, what did she see? Verses 36 and 37. Nabal was holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. She did not tell him anything about that until daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all this, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. And after that, the story goes on that Abigail became the wife of King David. Now, interesting that Abigail did not tell her husband when she returned and waited for the morning. Let's look at Queen Esther and then we'll do some analysis. Queen Esther. In the book of Esther, we find two surprises. First, the most important word that we find in the Bible is missing. God, the word God, is missing in the book of Esther. And an unexpected word is found in Esther, the word of our country, India. India is found in the book of Esther. Although we do not see the word God in Esther, we find God's power and influence directing the flow of the story. Queen Esther, her other name was Hadassah. She was an orphaned Jew, adopted by her cousin Mordecai. And both of them lived in the Persian city of Susa. Now, Susa was the capital of Babylon. But after 100 to 150 years of Babylonian kingship, the Persians came and ruled over this land. So Daniel's story came first, and after that, Queen Esther's story came after 100 to 153 years. Queen Esther's good life and story blossom in the context of Haman, a high-ranking officer who was wicked and was trying to annihilate the lives of the Jews through the king's authorization. Esther chapter 3. And Mordecai sent words to Esther to approach the king so that her people will not be killed. Esther chapter 4. Now, what did Esther do when she was told by her cousin to approach the king? Because Haman has influenced the king to declare a decree to kill all the Jews in the land of the Persians. What did she do? She obeyed Mordecai's advice and raised up to the occasion. And she said, and because Mordecai said, for such a time as this, perhaps God has brought you to the throne. Chapter 4, verse 14. And she made some very good decisions. She asked Mordecai to gather the Jewish people in Susa and fast and pray with her for 3 days. Then she said, she and her attendants also will pray and fast and do the same. Two, then she said, I will go into the presence of the king, King Xerxes. The thing is, if the king does not summon or call the queen, and you walk into the king's presence without being invited, unless the king extend his gold scepter and shows the sign that you are allowed to come in, that person who walks in uninvited will be put to death. Chapter 4, verse 11. But Queen Esther said, after prayer and fasting, I will go into the king's presence, and if I perish, I perish. Courageous women for the right reason. She invites the king and the official Haman to a banquet. When she was asked after the banquet was over the first day, what was her request to the king? The queen said, come again for the next banquet tomorrow, the next day. And then the king and Haman came again the next day. And then later on, when the king said, ask from me anything you want me to do for you, even half of my kingdom, I will give it to you, Esther. She revealed the plot that Haman had conspired to kill all her people and herself. The king was angry. She begged the king for her own life. Chapter 7, verses 3 to 6. We know the story. The king was angry. The king instead killed or gave the authorization to kill Haman. We know the story. Her action led to the deliverance of the Jews. Now, Esther's legacy or Esther's story is commemorated annually during the Jewish festival of Purim, celebrating their freedom from Haman's plot of annihilation or destruction of the Jews. Now, let's analyze the life of Queen Abigail and Esther, and then why not? They both had godly courage to do what was right. They had godly courage to do what was right. To go and meet David by Abigail is playing with her own life. She does not know what's going to happen. But she was courageous for the right reason to go and make peace and save her husband. The courage that she had was godly. Esther, if I perish, I perish, but I will go to the king. A godly woman has godly courage to do the right thing. She stands up for the right thing. Second, speaking truth with wisdom to achieve their goals. Speaking truth with wisdom to achieve their goals. Abigail was speaking with wisdom. She was not just going and said, don't kill, don't kill, don't kill, don't kill. No. She was wise and discerning and thinking logically. And she was thinking spiritually in that sense. What will God do? Your hands have not shed blood. Do not do this upon the foolish man, and so destroy your own peace of mind. She was convincing. She was speaking wisdom into the angry David. And here, Esther did not just go and then bluntly say, I don't want to die, or please save me, I'm about to die. No. She was thinking, she was planning wisely and finding the right time to say the right word. Abigail did not come back home, and when she sees her husband drunk, she did not go and confront her husband and say, what did you do? You nearly died today. If I had not gone to save you, you would have been dead by now. She didn't pour out her frustration and anger upon her husband, who is drunk and will not even understand what she is talking about. She kept her anger to herself, disappointment to herself, and waited for the right moment the next day when her husband is sober. And then she spoke words of wisdom, or she spoke the right and the true words to her husband. Her husband understood the mistake she had made. Queen Esther and Queen Abigail teaches mothers and fathers and every one of us the importance of being wise in speaking truth to achieve the purpose or the goal that we want to achieve. Just we cannot say, I am honest, and therefore let me tell you bluntly, it doesn't work like that. We have to be wise in speaking the truths in a way that the person who is listening will receive it and will take it. What use is your honest word if the other person is not going to take it? A little waiting is always important for us to achieve the goal that we want to achieve. Third, their faith in God inspires others. When we look at the story of Abigail and her trust in God, in other words, the God of David, painting a big picture for David, David was inspired. Yes, I should not be involved in just fighting and killing one man. God has a bigger purpose for me. Her faith, her words inspired David. Esther, her words inspired the whole Jewish people in Susa. I will go and meet the king after we have prayed. If I perish, I will perish. But you also pray for me. The whole Jewish population in Susa were inspired and they prayed. NCF mothers, your faith will inspire your family. Your faith will inspire NCF. Our faith as members of the church will inspire one another. Fourth, their selflessness and devotion and loyalty is displayed. Selflessness, their devotion, and their loyalty, despite uncertainty, was displayed. Abigail did not know how she's going to come back. Abigail did not know whether she'll come back alive or not after meeting David. Esther did not know whether she'll come out of the king's court alive or not after going to meet the king. But they were selfless. For whom? Selfless for others. Selfless for themselves, yes, but for others. They were loyal. They were devoted for the people they love. And it is inspiring to read and know their story. For all of us as well. It's not only for the mothers. It is a story that should ignite selflessness in all of us, devotion and loyalty in all of us, toward our parents, towards our husband, wife, children, church members, and most importantly, to God. Now let us turn to the New Testament and see what the New Testament tells us about godly women. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 and 4 tells us. Peter talks about husband and wife relationship here, but I want to focus on the character of a woman particularly, so I will not read other verses. Verses 3 and 4. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the inner richness, the inner power, the inner confidence and authority, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, the unfading beauty, the beauty that will not go away, the true beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. It may not be worth in the sight of the world, in the world where we talk about feminism, in a world where we talk about authority, but in God's sight, when we know who we are and follow His word, it is of great worth in God's sight. God has created us all equal, and we will all receive salvation. There is no higher, lower in terms of our salvation as well. Everyone is equal in the eyes of God. But mothers, when your true beauty is from your inner self, and when you have a quiet spirit, and unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit in your soul, it is of great value in God's sight. So, our prayer for all the mothers this evening is that may God's blessings be upon you. May God strengthen you in your roles as mothers. May you be filled with wisdom and surrounded by God's love. May God grant you peace, joy, and the assurance of God's presence in your life today and always. Amen.